All right, everybody, welcome back. We're diving into your requests today, taking a deep dive into the world of Agile versus Waterfall.
Yeah. This is the topic that always seems to get people fired up, sparks a lot of debate in the software development world.
It really does. It's like the age-old question of which came first, the chicken or the egg. But in this case, it's more like which project management methodology reigns supreme.
And what's fascinating is that it's not just a debate for us techies anymore. As software becomes more and more integrated into every aspect of our lives, understanding these methodologies, Agile and Waterfall, is becoming crucial for anyone involved in projects, really.
That's so true. Whether you're in marketing, product development, or even just trying to organize your to-do list. Speaking of which, our listener today sent in a really interesting question about this very topic. They're basically trying to figure out which methodology is the right fit for their next big project.
Okay, I see. So they want to know, should they be embracing the flexibility of Agile or the structured approach of Waterfall? It's a big decision.
It is. So let's break it down for them. Let's start with the basics. Imagine you're tasked with building a mobile app. How would you approach this using, let's say, Agile first?
Okay, so with Agile, it'd be like creating a very basic version of the app, just the core features, nothing fancy. And we'd release that to users, get their feedback, and use that feedback to build the next iteration. Maybe add a new feature, refine existing ones, and release again. And this cycle, this sort of feedback loop, it just keeps going, ensuring that the app evolves based on how people are actually using it in the real world.
So it's all about adapting on the fly, constantly iterating based on feedback. Kind of like, I don't know, improvising a jazz solo based on the audience's reaction.
Yeah, that's a great analogy. Now, contrast that with Waterfall. It's much more like meticulously planning and building every single detail of the app up front. We're talking about the user interface, the back-end infrastructure, every little thing, before releasing it as a complete polished product. Yeah.
Okay, so Waterfall's more like composing a symphony, where every note, every instrument is planned and orchestrated in advance.
Precisely. And, both of these approaches, they have their own unique strengths. Agile thrives on flexibility, on user feedback, while Waterfall offers that really strong sense of structure and predictability.
And that's what makes this whole discussion so interesting. There's no one right answer, no magic formula. Choosing the right methodology, whether it's Agile, Waterfall, or even a hybrid approach, it all depends on a bunch of factors.
It really does. You've got to consider the complexity of the project, the team's working style, even the client's expectations. All of that comes into play.
And that's what we're going to unpack in this deep dive. We'll go beyond these initial analogies, give you the tools to not just understand Agile and Waterfall, but to actually choose the approach that aligns best with your next big project. So we've got Agile as our jazz musician and Waterfall as the symphony, but let's dig a little deeper into Agile. One thing that caught my eye in your research was this whole concept of sprints. Now, I'm no Usain Bolt, so I'm hoping these sprints are a bit less physically demanding.
Thankfully, much less strenuous. See, in Agile, a sprint is just a short, focused burst of work, usually a week or two, where the team focuses on building a small, usable piece of the software.
Okay, so instead of getting bogged down by the enormity of the entire project, you're breaking it down into these bite-sized sprints, manageable chunks.
Exactly. And what's great is that at the end of each sprint, you have something tangible to show for it, a working piece of software that you can actually test, review, and most importantly, use to gather feedback.
Oh, which brings us to that other Agile buzzword from your notes, continuous delivery. It seems pretty self-explanatory, but I have a feeling it's more than just, constantly sending emails and hoping for the best.
Right. It's not just about delivering frequently, but about delivering value consistently.
Yeah.
Remember those working pieces of software from each sprint. With continuous delivery, you're getting those into the hands of users as quickly as possible. You're getting that real-world feedback early and often.
So it's less about surprising them with a finished product after months of radio silence and more about bringing them along for the journey, letting them steer the direction as the product evolves, right?
You nailed it. And you know what? This constant feedback loop isn't just about making the client happy. It's also crucial for catching those potential issues early on. Think of it this way. It's much easier to adjust a wall that's slightly off kilter while it's still being built than having to tear down the entire house later on.
Oh, absolutely. A much less stressful and expensive scenario for everyone involved. Our listener actually shared an interesting case study about a company that was building a project management tool, and they were using this continuous delivery approach. They ended up pivoting their entire design based on early feedback from just a handful of beta users. Probably saved them countless headaches down the line.
See, that's the beauty of Agile. It embraces change. It adapts. It doesn't shy away from it. And that's where those collaborative aspects come into play. You've got developers, designers, product managers, even the clients themselves, all working together, constantly communicating, bouncing ideas off each other.
And this communication is key, right? Because when everyone's working in their own little bubble, that's when those wires get crossed, deadlines whoosh past, and you end up with a final product that misses the mark.
100%. Agile recognizes that software development is a team sport. It's about breaking down those traditional barriers and fostering this environment of shared ownership and continuous improvement.
Which honestly sounds like a recipe for success in any field, not just software development. But I do want to touch on the other side of this. We've talked about Agile being all flexible and adaptable. What about those projects where you need that upfront clarity, that structured approach? That's where Waterfall comes in, right? So Agile is all about adapting and iterating. But what about those projects that need a more, shall we say, structured approach? That's where our friend Waterfall comes in, right?
Exactly. Think of it like this. If Agile is a jazz band, constantly improvising, Waterfall is a symphony orchestra. Everything is planned out, every note, every instrument, perfectly in sync.
I like that analogy. Then it makes me think about a point our listener raised about large-scale construction projects. You wouldn't just start building a skyscraper without a detailed blueprint, would you?
Absolutely not. You need that clear understanding of each phase, that structured approach to make sure everything is completed in the right order. And that's where Waterfall really shines. In projects with well-defined requirements, a low tolerance for deviation. It's about minimizing risk.
That makes a lot of sense. And speaking of minimizing risk, our listener specifically called out Waterfall's emphasis on documentation as a major plus.
Oh, absolutely. Documentation is key in Waterfall. It's like creating a detailed roadmap of the entire project. So if anyone needs to make changes or updates down the line, they have that clear documentation to guide them.
It's like the difference between having a well-organized library with a detailed card catalog versus inheriting a box full of unsorted papers.
Exactly. Now, that's not to say Waterfall is perfect. It does have its drawbacks. One of the big ones is that it can be less adaptable to change during the project. Once you've set those initial requirements, it can be tough to pivot if something comes up.
Which, in today's rapidly changing world, can definitely be a challenge. But then again, some projects require that stability, that upfront predictability that Waterfall offers. So it really comes down to context, doesn't it?
It always does. There's no one-size-fits-all in the software development world. The key is to understand the strengths and weaknesses of each approach, Agile, Waterfall, or even hybrid of the two, and choose what aligns best with your project's specific needs and constraints.
I think that's a great takeaway for our listener. Don't be afraid to really analyze your project, your team, your goals, and figure out which methodology will set you up for success.
And remember, no matter which approach you choose, whether you're Team Agile or Team Waterfall, clear communication and collaboration are absolutely essential. A team that works well together is more important than any methodology.
Couldn't agree more. Well, on that note, we'll wrap up this deep dive into the world of Agile and Waterfall. Hopefully, our listener feels equipped to navigate this ongoing debate and choose the approach that's right for them. Until next time, keep those tech questions coming, and remember, the best way to predict the future is to code it.